relevant information testify.
What do you think the odds are that he would take the stand?
I'm not Jimmy the Greek.
One of the sound bites of the week, pretrial hearings and jury selection beginning this week in the Bridgegate trial. Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Eric Lanskruner. The hearings gave a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, as to what the strategies for each of the defendants might look like and what we might find out during the course of this trial. It's, of course, very highly anticipated. With me now is News 12 New Jersey State House reporter Katie Kairos. Katie, good to see you.
Hi.
All right, let's get right to it because there's so much stuff that happened this week at the federal courthouse. People want to know what's going to happen, obviously. You've been covering this every step of the way for the folks at home. First of all, what is the purpose of the hearings that we saw this week? Break it all down for everybody.
This was a big one. It was a pretrial hearing to rule on a bunch of evidence. And so both defense attorneys wanted to file motions to get some of this evidence blocked that they don't particularly think is going to help their clients. And the judge largely didn't rule in their favor. But we saw both defendants, Bridget Kelly, former staffer for Governor Christie, and Bill Baroni, who's a former Port Authority official. Both are charged with conspiracy, with helping close the lanes on the George Washington Bridge. Both of them attended, and so they kind of sat through this as they heard all of this evidence that jurors are going to see now that's going to possibly influence them on what they think about these defendants.
Can you talk about their demeanor at all when you saw them walking into court and in court?
They've seemed pretty relaxed at all the hearings they've been attending because they've had to attend several hearings throughout the summer just on motions and housekeeping that's going on with the trial. They always seem relaxed. They always greet each other. They hug. They're very friendly with each other. But it's interesting because we're starting to see, they're two separate defenses. They're not being tried together. And they allegedly had different roles in this whole Bridgegate plot. So they're separate defenses, and their attorneys are starting to file and conflict on some of these pieces of evidence because certain evidence is going to help one but not the other. And so we're just now starting to see a split that's going to happen as we watch this case in court.
So how much evidence really was in dispute in this hearing this week?
So much evidence and so many different types of evidence. The judge actually ruled on more than a dozen pieces of evidence, and that includes everything from text messages between Bridget Kelly and David Wildstein, who was also accused in the plot. The texts allegedly are jokes about stopping traffic in front of a New Jersey rabbi's house that happened. Those were texted right around when Bridgegate happened. There are also photos of Governor Christie during the time that Bridgegate was going on at a 9/11 memorial. And he's pictured with Baroni and Wildstein speaking to them at this memorial on the third day of the lane closings. So that's going to call some things into question about the governor.
So they're allowing those in?
They're allowing those in. These are all being allowed in. And video of Baroni testifying before lawmakers. He allegedly lied about this traffic study. So that's going to be shown to jurors. Obviously, his attorney did not want that video to be in court.
So by and large, would you say that the hearings really didn't go the way that they wanted them to go this week?
They really didn't go the way they wanted them to go. The attorneys obviously did not seem too upset about it. I think that they probably expected that some of this was going to be allowed in because the judge found it was relevant and that jurors should see it. But they filed a lot of motions, and we didn't even get to hear about all of the motions they filed. At one point, there was a private conference between the attorneys and the judge. So I don't know if that possibly might be more sensitive motions because the judge referenced, you're orally arguing some of these motions. We'll talk about those, but then there are other ones that aren't being orally argued, so we didn't even get to hear all of the evidence that's going to come out.
This all was born out of what's being called a political payback scheme. Of course, there's a lot of questions to whether or not Governor Christie will make an appearance, whether he'll be called to testify, whether he will testify. But what about Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, because now he's involved in this?
Yes, Mayor Fulop is definitely going to be taking the stand, and we're now hearing in court at this hearing that Kelly's attorney, Michael Critchley, wants Fulop to take the stand. It's part of his strategy for how he wants to prove that his client should not be charged. But yeah, so basically, Mayor Fulop has said that he refused to endorse Governor Christie's re-election, and then he was later punished for that because the governor's administration canceled meetings with him with top officials. So he says that he was a victim of political revenge, and that's why the prosecution wants to have him on the stand to talk about this kind of behavior. Was this going on in the governor's office? Was this a common thing that kept recurring? And then Kelly's attorney wants to have Fulop on the stand because he wants to show, all right, well, if this political revenge happened to Fulop, there were no criminal charges in that case, So why is his client facing criminal charges? So we're starting to see his strategy a little bit.
Again, though, ultimately people, and I think that one of the things that we've spoken about in court is just how high did this go? Did the governor actually know more about this than he said? That's one of the things that there are a number of critics out there who have suggested. The governor said time and time again he knew nothing about this, and of course that's what I assume that we're going to speak or learn more about during the trial. Now the thing is that so many people are going to be watching this trial, but you won't see it on TV. You'll see our coverage of it, but there's no cameras allowed in the courtroom.
No cameras allowed in federal court, and so of course we'll be covering it. We'll be in there. Media can sit in there and take all their notes, and we can have sketches from the courtroom, but there's no actual camera recording. So if the governor testifies, we don't know yet if he's going to testify. You heard Michael Critchley, Kelly's attorney, say he's no Jimmy the Greek, but of course he has the power to subpoena the governor if he wants to. So if the governor takes a stand, I mean, it's going to be a media circus either way, but we won't have recordings of the governor's answers. We will know them, but it's going to be very crowded. And it's such that you can't just stand in the courtroom and listen. You have to have a seat. Right. So there's going to be overflow courtrooms and just a lot going on.
All right. Katie Cara, State House reporter, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.